Okay, here we go again. It's April 30th. This, I think, is a very good video. I really like it. Maybe that's because I have some history in what I believe the area of false gurus. And so this was a very important video, but maybe others will find it interesting too. But I was perplexed and bothered with doing it for a couple reasons. I believe that in the great Vedanta Hindu mantra saying, I believe it is many paths, same end, many paths, same God. Whatever works for you, whatever communicates for you, great. And many years ago, I was involved in something that I don't have any interest in now, but I learned something from it. Maybe I learned about false gurus, but I learned about spirituality, and I think it opened the door to the religions of India. And I learned a little bit about looking inside and spirituality and spirit, mind, body. And so I am thankful. I have no interest in it. And I believe it's a false guru. But that's my viewpoint. And I'm not going to mention words. I'm not going to say what it was. That's not important. This is simply about false gurus. And the other part I was very perplexed about is that I am no guru. If you've watched my videos, backtrack, the great guru, Lord Ramakrishna, said the ultimate guru is God, is Sat Chit Ananda, infinite knowledge and bliss within. And whether we listened to the great sages, the great lords, and the Sanskrit, the Vedas, whatever scriptures, that's what we listen to. So when I do these videos, I'm always quoting those that really were enlightened. Not me. I have had people say they enjoy I personalize it with a story here or there, but I always try to, here's the truths. And I just don't want to be chatting about me. And I've mentioned that in many of my videos. But I think now there's a website that is pretty funny. I think it's a really good one. Or I think it's pretty interesting. And I think the 9 points that I'm going to show you, they illustrate how to spot a false guru. And I think it's fabulous about a guru can also be just anybody that thinks they're senior to you, knowledgeable, and that they're going to tell you what's right. And we see that in the political world now. So I think you'll find this pretty interesting. Let me just pull up, by the way, a quick definition of guru. From the word guru, a word in Hindi, the major language in India, meaning Hindu teacher or spiritual guide, worthy of respect. A Hindu or Sikh religious teacher, I think it also said another definition, Buddhist, giving personal spiritual guidance to his disciples. So a guru would be technically if they are accepting disciples to teach. But there's many definitions. And so, so I told you what Ramakrishna mentioned, that ultimate guru, but Ramakrishna, the great Vivekananda, let me pull up these books real quick. The great Vivekananda, lower left, he was the Swami that brought the religions of India, and specifically Hinduism, to Europe and America in the late 1800s. And his guru was the great Ramakrishna, the book on the lower right. I love them both. I thank Vivekananda every day because I just love the religions of India. And I thank him because he communicated to me when I first started looking into this area. So, So let's do this. I think I'm going to take this down and just go right to the website. There we go. That'll work. Okay. So, by the way, again, how did this fall onto my plate, this website? I'm just Googling around and it just communicated to me. I haven't even read it all word for word. It's not important. The 9 bullet points were perfect. Absolutely perfect for me. And I saw it. I absolutely experienced this. Now, I don't know. The website's called Sanskriti, like Sanskrit with an I, magazine.com. Don't know anything about it. I'm not promoting it. I'm thanking them for writing this. They do have up here gurus, and one of them is Swami Vivekananda. And as I said, I'm forever thankful for Swami Vivekananda. So maybe that gives it some legitimacy. I don't know. I haven't read it, haven't looked at it. But this great How to Spot a Fake Guru or Spiritual Leader, and I think this is funny because right out of the 60s, see, this whole idea of find a guru is written in many of the books. Now, the books were also these books that I showed you were written a long time ago. And back then there was no internet, and we didn't have the great publishing and abilities and publishing houses. And I believe that so much you can gain off the internet and reading, and ultimately realizing that here is where our truth is. And that said, it was written a lot. Go find a guru, go find a guru. And that was a bit of a challenge. I mentioned that in my very first video, that was an obstacle I had to overcome. But I also realized that I did find a guru, maybe a false guru. I deem it as a false guru. But I found a guru, and I basically did what they said. And kind of like a devotee, disciple. And then I left. But yeah. So I don't know. I mean, everybody's going to do this differently. But in the 60s, gosh, the Beatles, I think some of the Beach Boys went. I know Donovan. There were business leaders. Steve Jobs went to India, and people were going off to find their guru. And so apparently I read there was a cottage industry of false gurus. And so they'd be kind of like when you see at airports, they'd be standing around saying, you're looking for a guru. And then they'd send them off to the false guru and get their commission. And the guru would charge a big pile of money, which is the number one tell of a false guru. They start charging a lot of money. So why don't we just get into it? I think this is really great. And by the way, the reason I think this is really important is a couple things. I think the false gurus that become successful attach truth to something that isn't true. And then we get attached to, we start getting encircled with ideas that aren't workable, that aren't applicable. And we have to separate out the false from the real truth. Especially, I believe, with those false gurus based on the great truths of India, of Hinduism, Buddhism. And that was really important. It took me a long time to bleed off, to peel off the falsities. And I guess those falsehoods, when I had to go through that, I was a bit angry, but I have no anger now on whatever I've done in the past and the paths. I am somewhat thankful. I learned, but I have no interest now, I guess is the best way to put it. And I guess somebody could say, well, what about Vedanta now or Buddhism now? Well, maybe. I don't know. Maybe in 10 years I won't be involved, but I love it. I just absolutely love it, and I'm very thankful for the path. So let's just take a look at false gurus. And in here he describes it. It's a bit sad because there are good, true gurus. And it saddens me a little bit that there are probably people that went on a path, got had, and then stopped. I will tell you that I did too, and then I started reading again, and I had to peel off and peel off and peel off. And I'm still marveling to this day at how I found Vedanta Hinduism, because it was like a magnet. The Vedanta Center, Ramakrishna Center in Sacramento, how I ended up arriving there. I told the story before. I'm not going to do it now, and I'm thankful. I just absolutely love it. So we'll just leave it at that. So let's just get into the 9 steps. I'm not going to say a whole lot, but number 1, charging large amounts of money. I think this is self-explanatory. I used to think to myself, why are you charging so much money? If it works, let's just help people. Yeah, that doesn't mean you can't charge something. I'm going to tell you the story that I went and I was talking to the Swami at the temple here in Sacramento, and I asked him about donations and this and that, and I thought it was so beautiful. He says, we've never asked for money. Never, ever. Not a once. And I said, that's just extraordinary. Again, comparing to some things where they're asking for money. He said, it just arrives. It just arrives. And they've been there, 70 years? Beautiful 10-acre facility. Never once. I actually had to build a box that says offerings and donations to make it easier for me to put money and make some donations. I don't know. I just think that's the unbelievable tell, and Ramakrishna says that's the number one tell. I believe that's what it said in his book, The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Number 2, giving themselves fancy titles. Oh boy, did I ever see that. I thought this was absolutely hilarious that this was brought up. Everything in, whether it's Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Vedanta Hinduism, what we're trying to do is give up on ego and the little s self and gain the bigger picture, gain the self-realization, big S self. That's where we're going. And anything that's attaching ego, like fancy titles and look at me, wrong path. I guess somebody could say using the word Swami is using a fancy title. I don't think it's fancy. In fact, I remember now that reading that Ramakrishna tried to get rid of anything that had any kind of title or any kind of identification. But anyway, inability to take criticism, to me, that gets back to the same idea. Anybody that's saying I'm right and they're wrong and we're the only path, something haywire there. And again, it gets back to ego in my mind. And if you can't take criticism, what if you're making a mistake? I make mistakes all the time. And if you can't take criticism, I think that's a great experience to be able to say, boy, I made a mistake. Anyway, overly focused on the end goal only. It says here, even the revered Buddha did not reach enlightenment overnight. Yeah. I'm just going to talk a little bit about this behaving hypocritically, because that one made me actually tear up when I saw it. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, that book, where is it? Take that down. In that book, I think this is, let me just go back and display this again. Behaving hypocritically, that is just huge. And the reason I'm bringing that up, near the end of it, it talks about after Ramakrishna passed away, which is I think 1883 or 4, 1886, anyway, 1880s, the Ramakrishna order started. And I believe their facility is called Beller Math in India. And one of I believe the first leader, don't know what his title was, but the first leader was Vivekananda, who passed away in 1906. And I believe the second one was Swami Brahmananda, if I have the name correct. But I believe the concept here was spoken, and I believe it was him. And he said, look, everybody meditates every day. Everybody studies their scriptures every day. This is what we are. This is what we do. When I read that, I just broke down, because what I witnessed was the exact opposite. If what I witnessed in one path was the exact opposite, if that's really what we're doing and believe in, isn't that what we're going to be doing? I just broke down. Same with the Swami saying right there in the scriptures, you don't have to go beg for money. You don't have to... The field of dreams, if you build it, they will come. There's a truth in that. Just as the Swami said, the money has always arrived. So if those are your scriptures and those are your truths, then follow them. Yeah. Anyway, focusing on fulfilling egocentric desires, I will personally admit what a mistake that was in me. I had too many egocentric desires and nothing communicated to me to get rid of the ego. That should have been step one, I believe. It is in the Sermon on the Mount, in the Beatitudes, as it's called, that you better, in fact, I believe it was written once that you need to follow your guru in a way to get rid of your ego. And I believe in the Sermon on the Mount the same thing, but it's almost like the egocentric desires, theirs and mine, coupled together, and what a mistake it was. And I can only blame myself. I can only blame myself. And maybe I should say that. I don't blame any of the paths I've taken in the past. I just don't. And yeah, displaying spiritual materialism. Yeah. Well, anyway, you can read a lot of it in here. Attracting riches is not the purpose of attaining these mind state. Anyway, money, 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 money. What else can I say? Promising a fast path to self-realization. Boy, did I get trapped there. So my point is, if you find this interesting, here's a website. Maybe you'll find it helpful. I found it immensely helpful in peeling off false ideas. And there's a great line in the movie Gandhi, which I've spoken about so many times, but he is asked about, I can't even remember exactly the context, but he basically says, and it's one of his great quotes, probably he's quoting somebody else, but he says, if you're a minority of one, the truth is still the truth. I thought that was pretty cool. So I think these are great. Yeah, well, that's exactly what it says. How to spot a fake guru or spiritual teacher. And yeah, and I think I'll just leave it at that. I don't know if I have anything else to say about it. I think that's important. Find truth. Do your reading. Find it in your soul. Yeah, especially I think it's applicable because we're seeing it in the political world too. People that are quote unquote gurus. Yeah. Okay, there you go.